A leopard cub stood on Highway 41, doing something no wild animal has ever done, begging on its hind legs like a trained circus act, while semi-trucks screamed past at 70 miles per hour. But when I looked down into the ditch, I saw why, and what happened next will haunt you forever. The fog rolled across Highway 41 like something alive. Thick, suffocating. The kind that swallows headlights whole and spits them back out as pale, useless ghosts. Out here, where the Florida Everglades kiss the asphalt, the air smells like rot and gasoline. Spanish moss hangs from cypress trees like funeral shrouds. And every 18 seconds, a semi-truck screams past at 70 miles per hour, rattling the earth like thunder. But this morning, something was wrong. On the white shoulder line, barely visible through the mist, stood a creature that didn't belong. Not here. Not anywhere in North America. His name, if anyone had bothered to give him one, was Leo. An African leopard cub, maybe 4 months old. His spotted coat, designed for the savannas of Tanzania, looked obscene against the black American asphalt. And those eyes, God, those eyes, they weren't animal eyes. They were human eyes, confused, terrified, pleading. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was watching each car pass like he was waiting for someone. Like he expected someone to stop. But here's the thing that'll haunt you. Wild animals don't do this. They don't stand on highways. They don't make eye contact. They don't wait, unless they've been taught to. A Peterbilt roared past, close enough that the wind tunnel hit Leo like a sledgehammer. The cub tumbled sideways into the gravel, his tiny body ragdolling across the shoulder. But here's where it gets impossible. Leo scrambled back to his feet, shook the dust from his fur, and did something no wild animal has ever done on a highway. He stood upright, hind legs planted, front paws pressed together at his chest. Like a circus performer, like a beggar, he was asking for help. And somehow, you could see it in his face. The way a drowning child reaches for a lifeguard. The way a soldier signals for a medic. But no one stopped, because they didn't see what I'm about to show you. There, half submerged in black stagnant water, lay the reason for Leo's desperation. Her name was Sarah. The mother, a full-grown leopard, 120 pounds of apex predator, now reduced to a broken thing. Her back hips were shattered, twisted at an angle that made your stomach drop. She couldn't move, couldn't crawl, could barely lift her head above the waterline. And those eyes, God help me, those eyes looked human too. A mother's sorrow. A mother watching her child beg strangers for mercy she knew would never come. But something else was moving in that water. Something with scales and teeth. And the tide was rising. What happened next will make your blood boil. Because Leo tried. 3 times, he tried. The first monster came on 2 wheels. A Harley roared through the fog, chrome gleaming like a war machine. Leo's ears perked up, those human-like eyes filled with something that looked like hope. He stepped forward onto the asphalt, front paws raised in that heartbreaking begging position. The biker saw him, made direct eye contact for 3 full seconds, and then, deliberately, twisted the throttle. Vroom. The engine screamed. Leo bolted into the sawgrass, his small body disappearing into the razor-sharp blades. From the ditch, Sarah's eyes tracked her baby's terror. She tried to move, tried to crawl toward him, but her shattered hips wouldn't respond. Only her eyes could follow him. A mother watching her child run for his life. But someone else was coming. Someone who didn't even see him. A black Mercedes drifted onto the shoulder, the driver screaming into a Bluetooth headset. "I don't care about the quarterly report, Jenkins." Leo emerged from the sawgrass, limping now. He stood in the begging position again, paws together, head tilted. "Please, please see me." The sedan missed him by 3 inches, but the tires hit the standing water in the ditch. The splash was filthy, stagnant swamp water. God knows what bacteria, what parasites, exploded directly into Sarah's open wounds, into the exposed bone where her hips had shattered. She flinched, a full-body spasm that sent ripples across the black water, and in the darkness below, something ancient and cold took notice of the movement. But the third monster? He was the worst. A delivery truck slowed down, actually stopped. Leo's entire body trembled with what looked like relief. This was it. This was help. He performed the trick perfectly. Hind legs planted, paws clasped together, head tilted just so. Please, please. I'll be good. Just help her. The driver stepped out. Work boots. Stained jeans. He looked down at Leo, and his face twisted with disgust. Get back in the swamp. The man hurled a half-empty Coke bottle. It hit Leo square in the ribs with a hollow thunk. The cub yelped, a sound no wild leopard should ever make, and collapsed onto the gravel. For 10 seconds, Leo just lay there, breathing, defeated. Then he crawled back to the ditch, back to his mother. He pressed his small body into her soaked fur, tucking his head under her chin. And he stopped begging, because when a 4-month-old cub gives up hope, you know the world has failed. The water rose another inch. Sarah's breathing grew shallow. The alligator circled closer, its prehistoric eyes reflecting the headlights of passing cars that never, ever stopped. And then, a $2,000 Italian leather shoe stepped onto the shoulder. His name was Arthur Castellano, corporate defense attorney, the kind of man who charged $850 an hour to make problems disappear. He'd just left his beachfront condo for his morning power walk. $2,000 Tom Ford suit, AirPods in, completely disconnected from the world. He almost walked right past them, but something made him stop. Something spotted in the ditch caught his peripheral vision. Probably a stray dog, he muttered, pulling out one earbud. He stepped closer to the guardrail, peered down into the fog, and his blood turned to ice. That wasn't a dog. Those rosette spots. That tail. That face. Arthur's brain screamed one word. Run. Every primal instinct in his body fired at once. You don't approach apex predators. You don't make eye contact. You back away slowly and call 911. But before he could move, Leo saw him. The cub's head snapped up. Those human-like eyes locked onto Arthur's face. And instead of hissing, instead of fleeing, Leo did something that shouldn't be possible. He ran toward him. Leo scrambled up the embankment, slipping in the mud, desperate. He reached Arthur's Italian leather shoes and, God help him, hugged his ankle, wrapped his tiny paws around Arthur's leg, and made a sound that wasn't a growl. It was a chirp. A plea. Arthur stood frozen. A wild leopard cub was clinging to his $1,200 pants like a toddler, begging not to be left at daycare. "What the?" Arthur's voice cracked. Then he looked down into the ditch. And he saw her, Sarah. The mother leopard lay half submerged, her massive body twisted in the black water. Her amber eyes, those impossibly human eyes, found Arthur's face. She didn't snarl, didn't bare her teeth. She blinked. Slow. Deliberate. It's a gesture big cats use to show trust. Submission. In that single blink, Arthur understood everything. She was asking. Begging. Not as a predator, but as a mother who had run out of options. Arthur's hands trembled. He pulled out his phone. This was insane. Handling exotic animals without permits? That's a federal felony. Minimum $10,000 fine. Possible jail time. His law license could be suspended. His reputation destroyed. But here's what you need to understand about Arthur Castellano. He'd spent 20 years defending guilty people. Wall Street criminals, corporate fraudsters, executives who'd ruined lives and walked away rich. He'd won every case. And he'd hated himself for it. "Okay," he whispered to Leo. "Okay. I got you." He dialed a number he'd saved 3 years ago. A wildlife vet named Maria, who owed him a favor for getting her brother out of a DUI. The phone rang once. Twice. Come on. Arthur. Maria's sleepy voice answered. "It's 6 a.m. What? I need you at Highway 41, mile marker 89. Right now. Bring tranquilizers, a stretcher, and..." He looked back at Sarah. The water had risen another inch. It was touching her nostrils now. She had to tilt her head just to breathe. And then Arthur saw it. 20 yards behind Sarah, cutting through the black water like a submarine. A 12-foot alligator. Bull male. Closing the distance. "And bring a gun," Arthur finished. "A big one." Arthur didn't wait for Maria's answer. He dropped the phone, ripped off his jacket, and did something he'd later describe as the stupidest decision of my entire legal career. He climbed over the guardrail and slid down into the swamp. The water hit him like a slap of rotting vegetables. Warm, thick, smelling of decay and gasoline runoff. His $1,200 pants were instantly ruined. His shoes filled with mud. He didn't care. Sarah's eyes tracked him as he waded closer. She tried to lift her head higher, but the effort made her whimper, a sound that came from somewhere deep and primal. A mother's sorrow made audible. The alligator was 15 yards away now, close enough that Arthur could see its nostrils flaring, tasting the blood in the water. "Hey!" Arthur screamed. "Hey!" He grabbed a fallen cypress branch, thick as a baseball bat, and slammed it against the water. The crack echoed like a gunshot. The gator paused, watching. But it didn't leave. Arthur wedged himself behind Sarah, bracing his knees against the muddy bank. He slid his hands under her massive head and lifted. 120 pounds of dying predator. And he had to keep her airway above water while keeping one eye on the prehistoric monster circling closer. "Come on, Maria," he whispered. "Come on." 8 minutes passed. 8 minutes of Arthur's arms screaming. 8 minutes of the alligator testing his resolve, inching forward every time Arthur blinked. Then, headlights. A white van skidded onto the shoulder, and Maria jumped out with a medical bag and a stretcher. "Jesus Christ, Arthur, that's a..." "I know what it is," Arthur shouted. "Get down here." Maria scrambled down with the stretcher. Together, they maneuvered it under Sarah's body. Every movement made the leopard moan. Her shattered hips ground against each other, and the sound was like breaking pottery. "On 3, Maria said. 1, 2. They lifted, and Sarah snapped. Pure instinct. Her jaws opened and shot toward Arthur's face with the speed of a bear trap. He jerked back, felt the wind from her teeth, passing an inch from his nose. "She's crashing," Maria shouted. Pupils dilating. "She's going into shock." They hauled the stretcher up the embankment. Leo scrambled behind them, chirping frantically. As Arthur reached for the stretcher handle, Leo bit down on his hand, hard. Drew blood. The cub wasn't attacking. He was terrified, clinging to the only human who'd stopped. "It's okay," Arthur gasped, ignoring the pain. "It's okay, buddy." They slid the stretcher into the van. Maria started an IV line while Arthur held Sarah's head still. The leopard's breathing was shallow now, irregular. Her human-like eyes were glazing over. "We need to move now," Maria said. "She's got minutes, not hours." Arthur pulled the van doors closed, and that's when he saw it. Red and blue lights. A Florida Highway Patrol cruiser rolling slowly toward them on the shoulder, spotlight sweeping the fog. If that cop saw 2 leopards in the van, no permits, no licenses, no legal justification, Sarah and Leo would be euthanized immediately. Protocol. No exceptions. Arthur looked at Maria. "Drive." They made it, barely. Maria's clinic was 40 minutes away. Sarah flatlined twice in the van. Arthur performed CPR on a leopard, something they definitely don't teach you in law school. By the time they crashed through the clinic doors, his hands were covered in blood. Leo's. Sarah's. His own. The surgery took 6 hours. Arthur sat in the waiting room, still wearing his ruined Tom Ford suit, mud-caked on his $1,200 shoes. His phone buzzed 17 times. Missed court appearance. Angry clients. Partnership review meeting. He turned it off. For the first time in 20 years, he didn't care. Maria emerged at 2 p.m., exhausted. "She's stable. We saved the leg function, most of it anyway. She'll walk again." Then Maria held up a small chip reader. "Found this under her skin. They're registered to the Everglades Exotic Zoo. Shut down 8 months ago for animal cruelty. The owners, they trained them, taught them tricks for tourists." Arthur's jaw tightened. "The begging." "Yeah," Maria said softly. "They probably escaped when the facility was raided. Been surviving out there ever since." 6 months later, Arthur stood at the fence of the big cat sanctuary in Homestead, watching the morning sun paint everything gold. Sarah emerged from the shade, walking with a slight limp, but strong. Powerful. Her coat gleamed. Behind her, Leo, now a 60-pound adolescent with muscles rippling under his spotted fur. Then Leo saw him. The young leopard's ears perked up. He approached the fence, those amber eyes, still impossibly human, locking onto Arthur's face. And he stood up on his hind legs. Arthur's heart stopped. But Leo didn't clasp his paws together. Didn't tilt his head. Didn't beg. Instead, he chuffed, a greeting sound, deep and genuine, and pressed his forehead against the chain-link fence. Arthur reached through and scratched behind his ears. Leo leaned into the touch, purring like distant thunder. "You don't have to beg anymore, buddy," Arthur whispered. "Nobody's ever going to make you beg again." He looked across the sanctuary grounds, at Sarah lounging in the sun, at Leo strong and wild and free, and he thought about that foggy morning on Highway 41. The begging cub on the white shoulder line. The dying mother in the ditch. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop and help when everyone else drives by. And sometimes, the wildest creatures teach us what it really means to be human.